to generate more production, how to generate more exports. And the answer to that is much more difficult.
Tell me what the IMF is exactly, the International Monetary Fund.
The International Monetary Fund is basically like a central bank for the whole world. So whenever somebody runs into a temporary problem and it doesn't have money, it goes to the IMF. The IMF lends money to these countries, but for a very short period of time, under certain conditions.
And with strings attached.
And with strings attached.
Every country in the world puts money into the International Monetary Fund?
Every country that is a member, and today there are about 150 countries that are members of the IMF, and every country puts in what is called a quota, which is basically paying for its membership. It's like a club.
Do you agree with the position of the International Monetary Fund throughout this debt crisis? Or do you think there are certain things they should have done or could have done?
Well, with hindsight, it's always easy to find some better ways of doing it. On the whole, they have played a tremendously constructive role. The key issue is now how to go from here to there. And by that I mean is how to go from a period where you have adjusted the economy and basically try to live within your means to an economy which is able to produce much more goods in order to be able to sustain its own pattern of development and to be able to repay the debt. And there I think there's a tremendous role for the World Bank, because the World Bank's strength is not on short-term adjustment programs, which is basically the work of the IMF, but in long-term development projects. And I think it's very important for the World Bank to play a bigger role in the third world by trying to tell these countries which would be the best investments to make in order today to make these investments for tomorrow to generate the cash that they will need to service the debt that has only been postponed for a couple of years. It could become a very difficult situation, although one has to bear in mind that in some of the African countries there's already very little commercial bank lending, and most of the lending is linked to trade. So the banks are financing, for example, imports or exports, but there's very little lending. Commercial bank will have to be kicked out. very similar to the one we're going through now, happens in the 1970s. The difference was that the countries defaulted at the time vis-à-vis bond holders and not commercial bank lending. But I think the lessons we can learn from this crisis is that if a country produces much less than it consumes, whereas Brazil, Mexico, or the US, it's an unsustainable situation.
Christine Bindert, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
And our thanks to our host, broadcast journalist Karen Kalish, and her guest. Christine Bindert is a Senior Vice President of the International Banking Division of Shearson Lehman, American Express. She's a contributing author of a recently published Overseas Development Council book titled Uncertain Future, Commercial Banks and the Third World. If you'd like a free transcript of this program, please write to Focus on Third World Debt, 1755 Massachusetts Avenue Northwest, Washington, D.C. The zip is 20036. That address again for your free transcript is Focus on Third World Debt, 1755 Massachusetts Avenue Northwest, Washington, D.C. The zip 20036. At the same time, you might wish to drop us a line telling us what you thought of the program. And please let us know the call letters of the station you're listening to. This program was brought to you by the Overseas Development Council, one of 7 non-profit, non-partisan organizations that bring you the Focus series. The American Association for the Advancement of Science, the Brookings Institution, the Conservation Foundation, the Consultative Group on International Agricultural Research, the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies, SICE, and Resources for the Future. The opinions expressed on the program are those of the individual participants.
I'm Bob Mueller.